cabins belonged to a doctor. He had this huge cellar in the basement. If you stay up too late, or if you leave your cabin past curfew, you just might see the doctor. I saw him.
He's not real, Morgan. It's just a dumb story.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2025 horror film Marshmallow. The film is directed by Daniel Del Purgatorio and it stars Georgia Wingham, Paul Soter, Maya Check, Pearson Ford, Alicia Reiner, Corbin Burnson, Q Lawrence, and Max Malas. Right. The film focuses on a young boy who is severely lacking confidence. He doesn't really have any friends. So his parents decide to send him to summer camp. He doesn't want to go. He's very reluctant, but he gets there. And he starts enjoying himself a little bit, even though his roommate is a bit of a bully and he's picking on him and stuff. And then this... Early on in the stay at summer camp, they do the usual thing. They gather around the campfire, and the the camp leaders tell a ghost story of someone that used to live in these woods years ago in one of the cabins, and he was a doctor that used to experiment on people. So it's all in good fun. Everyone has a good laugh. They get a good scare. But this one young boy believes that the tale is true. He thinks he's seen something that suggests it's true, and then things go completely bonkers, completely out of control. As it turns out, the story might actually have more truth to it than everybody first realized. Right, what's my thoughts on Marshmallow? Well, I kind of heard of this one on the grapevine a little bit. I've been, watching a few blogs, that kind of stuff. And this was coming up a lot of a recent horror film that, was getting a good buzz. So I thought, well, I'm going to check this one out. Because on the surface, this seems like just another summer camp horror film. And on the surface, that's exactly what it is. But I guarantee you this film goes in directions that you will never ever have figured out going into it. You would never think that it was going to do what it does, this film. It is really unpredictable, completely flips and subverts your expectations as to what you think this film is going to be or what it is. And finishes in a way that you absolutely won't expect. And that, for me, is great. I love that when films do that and they kind of show you one thing, give you another, and completely surprise you. I love it. I love when people do that and they really flip the genre and play around with it and be creative with it. And that's exactly what they've done here and delivered a wholly original a horror experience, if you like. I thought the film was structured really, really well. It does its job well in regards to what it's giving you. The cast all do a fine job. And there's a lot of child actors in this. And I think the only minor criticism I've got, and it is a minor criticism, is because there are so many child actors here, when, if you like, the chaos begins, or, the real fear is supposed to start, not all of them kind of portray it in a way that's believable, I suppose. I wouldn't describe it as poor acting or anything. It just, you didn't necessarily buy into it. It almost felt at times it was going into Goonies territory. That's what, kept coming into my mind occasionally, and I'm thinking, but that doesn't suit the tone of this film. You know what I mean? family friendly sort of thing. That's definitely what they weren't going for, and occasionally it kind of I think started slowly easing into Goonies territory. Not for long and not often, and it didn't stay there long. What I really again loved about this was you absolutely gets to the point where you're desperate for answers because you're like, what is going on? It gets to the point you're just like, okay, this doesn't make sense anymore. What's happening? And you know the film absolutely needs to explain itself. But I guarantee you the explanation you get is one that you will not have figured out. I like to think when I'm watching movies, I've watched enough of them now and I'm not stupid. I can sometimes kind of figure out where a film's going. Or if a film is just being pretty generic and paint by numbers, certainly, and not really delivering anything new and unique, you kind of like you map a film out in your head, and where it goes is usually what you've had in your head. Forget that with this one. You ain't going to get that with this one. This film absolutely likes to play around with the genre, really mess about with it, and give you something different. And that's what we all want. That's certainly what I want when I'm watching a film, whatever genre it is. There's so many films obviously now, and it's so difficult for them not to, repeat what's come before, that sometimes you just want something different, something a little bit of a different experience than what you are absolutely being fed usually by the masses, really. A paint by numbers generic film that does everything it says on the tin, and sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that's exactly what you want from a film, but it does get a little bit dull sometimes. How many horror films have we watched that have been set around summer camps in general? I mean, there's too many to even list. And this film is completely self-aware of that, and completely and utterly gives you something different here. So it's a pretty strong recommendation from me. I think this really, really does a good job of delivering a horror film that will keep you on your toes, keep you guessing. A bit of a white knuckle ride at times, and it was a really, really good ride from my perspective as a viewer watching this. This is definitely one that you need to look for and check out, Marshmallow. I'd be very, very surprised if you figured out. And you absolutely need to go into this film blind. Don't start researching this film or anything like that. You need to go into this film completely blind and not knowing what's coming, sort of thing. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Marshmallow. Let me know if you've seen the film, what your thoughts are, and I will of course be back with plenty more content on the channel very, very soon.